Having been a financial advisor for over 20 years and having recently retired myself at the age of 59, I want to make the case for retiring before 65. Here in the United States, 65 is kind of the default for all of us, but I also want you to think about, does that make sense for you? Just because it's the default, just because that's what other people do, doesn't mean that it's right for you. So in today's video, I want to share with you the evidence that I have for why you should consider retiring before 65. And the first one is our health. You know, as a financial advisor, one of the things that was the saddest for me to see is when a family worked so hard to prepare for retirement, and then they never got to enjoy that retirement. Somebody had a health issue. Maybe one of the spouses, when it came time to retire, said, you know, I want to work just one more year. And unfortunately, during that time, maybe they had a health issue. And while many of us think and hope and pray that we're going to be healthy until our 80s, the reality is most of us will not. At 60 years old, most of us have less than 1,000 weeks of healthy, active time in front of us. So we want to make sure that we're taking full advantage of that and we're squeezing all the juice out of those 1,000 weeks if we're lucky to get that. In fact, the World Health Organization reports that in the United States, the average American, unfortunately, we lose our health at 66.1 years old on average. And what that means is somebody has a cancer diagnosis, or they get coronary heart disease, or they have a stroke, something like that, where all of a sudden your carefree health days are behind you. And at our age, usually once that happens, we don't fully get to those carefree health days anymore. And unfortunately, continuing to work, in my opinion, I'm not a physician, but I think that stress is not good for us. I think the commitment of working 40, 50, 60 hours a week, the commitment of getting results done, the stress of just working on a team and trying to get something done in a short period of time. It's like that frog in the boiling water story, right? If you put a frog directly in boiling water, the frog says, "This isn't for me," and jumps out. But if you slowly turn up the heat on a frog, they stay in that water. And I think the analogy for us is, you know, when we were younger and we took our first job and maybe we were renting an apartment and then maybe we got married and we got a house, so now we've got a mortgage, and then maybe we had kids and we're saving money and trying to provide the best life for our children that we can. We're saving money for their college while trying to pay down our mortgage, while trying to save for our retirement. It's just year after year, another brick gets added to our shoulders, and we just don't realize how much stress that we're under. So from a health standpoint, you know, having the time to work on keeping your muscle mass up, having the time to work on keeping your flexibility up, having the time to work on your cardiovascular and to eat right, and all of those things unfortunately take time. And when we're working 40, 50, 60 hours a week, it's hard to do that. So that's the first one. The second one, I'm going to dig more deeply into time. And I want to start by saying, you know, there's always ways to get more money, but there's never ways to get more time, right? None of us know how much time we have, but it is a limited quantity. So we can always work 10 more years and likely, you know, get 50% more in our investment accounts, maybe double of what we have in our investment accounts. But what are we paying in order to get that, right? If we want to be the richest person in the cemetery, we work until the day we die. But I think it's about enjoying the journey. It's about enjoying the time with people that we love and doing things that we've always said that we wanted to do. And at some point, we need to say that enough is enough. We're no longer willing to exchange time for money. And you know, the trifecta in our lives is when we have time, right? When we're in our 20s, we have a lot of time. But so that's one leg. The other leg is money. And when we're in our 20s, most of us don't have much money. And then the last leg is our health. And in our 50s, in our 60s, many of us will have all three of those, but that's a short window. We want to make sure that we're grabbing onto it and we're taking full advantage of it. Okay, the third one is relationships. You know, think about maybe if you have aging parents and you'd like to be able to spend more time with them while you have time with them. If you have young kids at home, you know, taking those vacations, doing things with them. If you have adult kids, you know, how many more summers at the beach do you have? Maybe, you know, many families get together with their kids if they're not in the same town a couple times a year or so. How many more of those visits do we have? And we want to make more of those moments if we can. Also with our grandkids, how much time do we get to spend with our grandkids if we have them? And then making new friends, because while our friends at work are great, and for many people, particularly men, many of our friends are through work, but the reality is once we retire and we're no longer on that team at work, for many people, and having worked with hundreds of people and guiding them into retirement, they were surprised that those friendships started to die away. And it's not that they're bad people on the other end, it's just we have very different lives. So building new friendships and finding new people to have relationships with is important. And number 4, it's also important to start building other passions. We've just been so busy for so long. Many of us have lost some of those passions that we had when we were younger. And so thinking through in retirement, what are you going to be passionate about? What are you going to be excited about? What are you looking forward to? And sometimes people will tell me, hey, Azul, I can't think of anything I'd enjoy doing more than work. And if you really love work, great. You've won the lottery if you love your job that much. There's other things in your life as well, and so that's the question for you. But for many people, it's not necessarily that they love their work so much, it's that they haven't taken the time to build other passions, other hobbies. So starting to take the time now, I'm going to talk about this at the end, to build that so you have something pulling you away from retirement. So you want to be going to something, you want to retire to something, not necessarily retire away from something. You know, I'm tired, I'm exhausted at work, I've been doing it for a long time, whatever it is, that's moving away from something. You want to say, you know what, yeah, I'm fortunate, I have a job that I like, but I have this other thing, and it's time for me to turn the page, it's time for me to open another chapter. When it comes to hobbies, I want to give you a caution. The 3 most common answers when I would talk to my clients about what they're thinking about doing in retirement is travel, spending time with grandkids, and gardening. And it turns out gardening is like the #1 hobby in the United States, but just be sure that those are your answers, not the answers that your friends have given you in the past, particularly travel. As I record this, if you're wondering what that jungle is behind me, I'm in Costa Rica. I like to travel, but I can tell you, it is also exhausting. And you know, right now I'm 60 years old. I can put up with the exhaustion and the moving parts, but at some point I won't be able to do that. So just make sure those passions are yours. Okay, and then many of us are close to our retirement number. And if you're thinking, you know what, Azul, a lot of this makes sense, I want to think about retiring sooner, you might be close enough. You know, maybe 90% is good enough. This isn't financial advice. I urge you to work with a financial advisor, somebody that is a fiduciary to you, and come up with what that number is for you. I can tell you the most important question I ask people when they're going to retire is, how much money do you plan to spend in retirement? So if you're 90% of the way there, could you spend maybe 10% less in retirement and be able to retire 2, 3, 4 years early? Maybe. Talk to your financial advisor and find out. And then finally, I want to say it's about avoiding regrets. When we look back on this one life that we have, we want to say, you know, again, we squeeze all the juice out of that and minimize the regrets that we have, both by when we retire and then enjoying the journey until we retire. And enjoying the journey in your 60s until you get to retire is super important, your 50s and 60s. And that's why I made this video, 8 things to stop doing after 60 to enjoy your journey until you get to retire.